there's another
intrigue.
move, there's another challenge. And that challenge was Celtic. I mean, I didn't know what to expect.
Did you learn the language?
He was, I mean, Maradona was on another level, but as a striker, Van Basten was the best. You could even say AC Milan, Inter Milan, you know, you can, but there isn't nothing like the day-to-day intensity of life in Glasgow. I loved it. I mean, I loved it because I also loved it on the field, but I loved it socially too. And you know what? Steve's as dry as hell, but it's so funny. Once you've been in these companies, I tell you, he's got a great humour.
Top manager. Top manager.
Honestly, I think, you know, Scotland, you should be grateful to have him.
So, Paul, thanks for coming to chat with us. So, tell us, how did you arrive at Celtic?
Fortuitously, Chris. It was, believe it or not, so Big Billy, I worked with him when he was at Villa and got to know him well. And then he left and went on to Manchester City. Then I went to Italy, Pisa in between. And they were looking at Mark Walters, believe it or not, Pisa. Mark weren't, I'm not sure if he was aware at the time. They were looking at him, and Deadly Doug, our chair then, great man, he organised the game because he knew a couple of interesting guys on the Hagley Road in Birmingham that owned...
Doug Ellis.
Yeah, Deadly Doug. Great man. We arranged a friendly. We went out to Pisa. They come to Aston Villa. They love Mark Walters. And every time they come back to watch him, he had a couple of problems with his hamstrings. But it was just ironic that in between, Juventus signed Ian Rush. Massive fee, £3.5 million. And I just had, you know when you have a purple patch? I had a purple month. So that month, I remember, I played against Gary Lineker, Kerry Dixon, Mark Hughes, Ian Rush, and Graham Sharpie.
Yeah.
And I just had this month, which I've never had the rest of my career. It was fantastic. I just couldn't put a foot wrong. So they obviously, all of a sudden, their focus shifted. Well, they saw me when I played Rushy, when we played against Liverpool. They've just signed him. And obviously, big fanfare. They paid £3.5 million. So they're saying, who's he? So then obviously that shifted the telescope on me. And then that season, they kept watching me. And I performed consistently well. And unfortunately for Villa, we got relegated that season. So, you know, what usual when you're relegated, asset strip, you know, some players got to move on. And then Pisa come in, they done the deal. The Presidente flew over in his private jet. I mean, I've never been one of them before till then. Right. And then it was just chaos, absolute chaos. But the whole intensity, you know what it's like, the euphoria of a transfer saga going on, and me going to Italy. I'm like, I think Italy.
Yeah.
Long way from South East London, from Lewisham, isn't it? Yeah. You know, so it was a brilliant move.
But was Italy? So it was a brilliant move. What was it? I mean, how much of a sort of culture shock was it? How much of a change was it for you?
It was massive because ultimately, I mean, I couldn't have gone to a better club. Pisa just got promoted from Serie B to Serie A, and they were like, do you remember? Well, you know the teams like. They reminded me of sort of Luton in the early 80s. David Pleat building a great team. Ricky Hill, Brian Steamage Thomas, or like Aberdeen, Sir Alex with Neil Cooper, John Hewitt, William Miller. So they were a team built on real localised talent. So that was brilliant for me because you could just get in under the radar. So at that time, you could only have 2 foreign players. So it was me. And many of you know the name was Carlos Dunga, the Brazilian.
Wow.
Great man. Never see a man drink red wine like him, I tell you, Carlos. He's a great lad. But he was such a talented player because he reminded me of, well, you would, Chris, there's a bit of Makalele, a bit of Deschamps, but what he could do, he had great variation, his technique, his range of his passing, but he could press the ball. And even then, so early in 1987, technically and physically, he was an absolute man-mountain.
Are you having any real thought, though, of moving to Italy?
No.
Back then, you just...
It was just opportunity, isn't it? And people said to me, yeah, Paul, how could you say no? You know, and for me, it was hugely significant because, you know, at that time, I mean, obviously, you know, Souness and Brady and they were there sort of prior to that. So coming where I come from my background, and having that opportunity. And then, guys, let's be honest, back in the 80s, Serie A was the best league in the world. It's the equivalent of the Premier League today. My first game was against AC Milan, at Pisa.
Give us a few of the AC Milan.
I remember the coach, his name's Materazzi. Do you remember the centre-back who he butted
Zidane?
Zidane.
Materazzi.
It's his father, Beppe, was our coach. Great man. And I remember him saying, Paul playing against Milan today, and he got one of the guys, Luca Ciccone, to interpret it, and he says they've got Tassotti right back. Okay. Baresi centre back, Costa Corta, then Maldini. He says they've got this player called Ancelotti in midfield. Okay. Then this other one called Frank Rijkaard.
But wait, do you have an idea of how good these are?
No chance. Absolutely zero chance. And then he says up front, they've got this other player called Marco van Basten. Wow. And he says they've got another one. He says he's got and it's like he's saying dreadlocks, He says he looks like a middleweight boxer. But he's got magic in his feet, he said, and he says his name's Ruud Gullit. So I says to Luca, my mate, says, looks like I'm going to have a busy afternoon then.
The younger generation, though, you go back to then, now they'll look at the superstars like strikers, but Marco van Basten was a superstar.
Proper. I was very lucky to have played against some great players in my time, and he was, Maradona was on another level, but as a striker, Van Basten was the best. He had to retire when he was 26, 27, bad ankle. But he had the whole, he was 6'3". He could run, he could jump, he could press. He had great technique. He knew where the goal was. His work out of possession was just remarkable. He was the best all-round
So had you
footballer.
played against anything like that up to that point?
Well, no, not in England.
You mentioned Maradona.
Yeah,
we
listen.
can't gloss over that.
No, listen, the nearest I got to him when I shook his hand at the end of the game.
That's what part
he
two.
got me sent off. He got you
sent off?
Yeah, we had a bit altercation at Pisa, and they beat us 1-0. But, Maradona, all I can just say about him, he had magic in his feet. I remember before the game, he was warming up. He had his own sort of physio. He's warming up with an orange. Flicking it, carrying his head. I don't think, I struggled to do it with the ball. He's doing it with an orange. But he was a genius. Wow. Genius. Things that he could do with the ball. He was just born to play football.
There's a lot of British base players have moved there now. But how difficult was it for you at that time to make that move?
It was tough. But, when you just go in, I was young. I think I'd had a good reputation, and you're fearless. You don't see fear, do you? And playing against that calibre, that magnitude, it can make you or it could break you. And I think it made me, because there were great players, and the whole league, Serie A then, every game was a real tough game, just like the Premier League. But you learn so much, the culture, the environment.
But go on that, the culture then. Yeah. You go over there, I would imagine it's totally different to anything. So
absolutely.
How did you deal with that?
Well, when you're young, you just don't care. And the thing with Pisa, which was great, there was no pressure. When you go to some of the bigger cities, Milan and Rome, you've got that media. I've never seen such media intensity as what I've seen in Italy. You had about 6 or 7 daily papers, and the whole, journalists are everywhere. They're watching your train. The whole day-to-day intensity of the life, that's where I think a lot of players could struggle. And I adapted very quickly because I just went out and played football. I had no fear, and I think that was my own strength of mind, my character. I use this phrase, your resilience becomes your brilliance, really. But I so loved the life, the culture, the people.
Did you learn the language?
Yes. They taught me all the swear words first,
As you do.
Then it was Vino Bianco, Vino Rosso. That's all I need to know. But the whole, and because also from my standpoint, with a lot of work that I do, I was one of the very first black English defenders, if not the first, to go and play in Italy. So that was, I didn't know that at the time, but, it sort of captured a lot of the work that I'd done sort of thereafter. And it was, I look back on it and I was so bloody lucky.
You've just sold the dream there, right? So how did you go to Celtic in the back of that?
I know. To be honest with you, that's a really good question, because at that point I was thinking, because I was told, allegedly, Brian Clough wanted to sign me. He's at Nottingham Forest. Wow. West Ham had come in for me, and also QPR. But the fact is, I'd already went from Charlton to Luton in the first division, and then from Luton to Aston Villa. So I'm thinking, why go back to? I was only 25 at the time. So there's another move. There's another challenge, and that challenge was Celtic. I mean, I didn't know what to expect. And
did you learn the language?
I discovered lager up here, discovered Tennent's, but it was brilliant. You know,
What did you walk into at Celtic though? Because that's,
I had no idea. I always remember. I remember there was a press conference at Parkhead. And I remember somebody saying, "I think we've signed Frank Bruno." I was big, you know. You know what, Chris? Life's just full of unknowns, isn't it? And we all have to remember, we've all been players. You played in England, you played there. I was still playing football. I was still doing something that I love doing. And from the background that I grew up and come from, to go there and then, you know, Italy, sort of Charlton, Luton, Aston Villa, Pisa, Celtic, then back to Chelsea. Everything was just football, journey, experience, new people, different parts of the world. It was bonkers here. I mean, and the thing is, I come here, I wasn't fully fit because I had a bad, I had a cruciate ligament injury, so I recovered. But remember at that time, a lot of players weren't recovering from the cruciates. Right, and the surgery technique has really enhanced over the last 20 odd years. So what I didn't have was I wasn't fit. But the knee was, but I hadn't played enough football in the second half of the season. So obviously, the usual media, they got after you and, Elliott's crocked, he's this, he's that. They've signed a dud, is it? That's what they use,
Just on that media side, so you've said how intense you've seen in Italy.
Yeah.
Surely when you come here, that's probably one of the biggest things everybody experiences.
Because, and I know, the reality is you've got the two biggest clubs in Scotland within a 2-mile, 3-mile radius. So the day-to-day intensity and pressure, because what you need for me to be, and I think this is one of the reasons maybe I had a successful career, it's personality. Scotland, and they needed it in Italy, they got it. Scotland is my personality. Because I knew, I remember some of the early games, the game was, I thought I needed an extra lung. It's like the balls went from, and whereas in Italy it was slow and methodical, then a flurry of movement in the final third. But that was all part of the diversity of football, what football looked like. And, it was competitive and it suited my game. Once I settled down, once I got fit, then I really took off.
What were the expectations at Celtic at that particular time?
It's a good question because I think, listen, you had the Souness Revolution, and interest. I mean, I remember the play. I mean, he bought him with Chris Woods. You had Bomber Brown. You had Richard Gough. You had Terry Butcher, Gary Stephen.
Could you have gone there?
Pardon?
Did you get an offer from Rangers at all? Or?
Well, not directly, but there was a lot of. But there was a lot of rumour factory, especially when I left. My stop to Chelsea was only going to be temporary.
Oh, so you were maybe coming back to Rangers?
Well, I don't know, but there was
you
this.
You did like a party with the Rangers boys.
I did. Well, listen, the thing is, I was a bit naughty, but I didn't listen. It was after the Skull Cup final. I won man of the match, scored. We got beat 2-1. I remember Big Billy saying he's looking at all of us, but he's looking at me. He says, "Big man, I do not want you nowhere near Glasgow City Centre tonight." I says, "Gaffer,
I've already booked my taxi."
I promise you. Taxi's coming at 8:30. So Jakanowski's looking at me out of one eye. I've got the Hat, Paul McStay looking at the other. You've got John Collins in the corner laughing his eyes out. Do you see what I mean? And I've got Packy, Packy Bonner. He's just sitting there sort of looking around, I says, "Gaffer, I will not be out. I will not be out." And I thought, I was at home. I went home, I live in a nice little flat in Uddingston. It was about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 8:30. He rings me, Polska, Jakanowski with Jackie. "Big man, Jamaica," he called me. "Jamaica, what are we doing?" I says, I'm going nowhere. He says to me, "You must promise me you won't go nowhere." I says, "I'm not going to go nowhere. I won't go nowhere."
The feet are tapping.
Correct.
Ready to go.
About another hour. And I'll tell you what, it was a minute in my head, but another hour till I had to have. I thought, sod it. So I went downtown and I went into my place in Victoria's. I mean, I remember seeing James Morton. I says, "James, I'm disappointed with you. I should have had a flat at the top and I should have had a blue plaque." Elliott lived here. and he was, and I mean, I have to say, I saw the Raids. And the thing was, guys, I knew all of them, literally, because I played against Haitley Mark, I knew well. Saw Mark a couple of weeks ago. Coisty, Mo Johnston, Mark Waters, Terry Hurlock, played against him when he was at Millwall, Trevor Stephen, Gary Stephen. To be honest with you guys, they were my mates. Do you see what I mean? And I know the politics and all that, and I thought, sod it. So I went up and I remember going up, they were all in a piano bar, they were all getting hammered, and I just thought, I'll get hammered with them. So I had some drinks and it was a great night. And I remember the next morning, Big Billy called us in, just ignored me.
Did he?
Yeah, he just ignored me. Yeah, first time he's ever ignored me. And he says, big man. I says, Gaffer, I said, what am I supposed to do? I'm at home, I'm on my own. I says, you know, and I says, listen, Gaffer, you know, some of the other boys are telling me, don't go. And I was telling them, don't go. But I went. So it was all fun. And in the end,
how difficult was it back then? Like, I mean, Celtic weren't winning much as such, but how difficult back then? Because the pressure with what it is now with Rangers was the exact same as Celtic back then.
Yeah, I mean, remember they had success, didn't they? They won a couple of years previous success. Obviously, Souness coming and done a marvellous job, and obviously had the finance to do it. Yeah. But you know, we had some great players. You know, John Collins, Paul McStay, Jack Anosti, Dobchek, Packy Bonner in goal. You know, Derek White, Big Dean. You know, Jose Miller. They're all good players, and I think, to be honest with you guys, the SPL then was a really competitive league. It had competitive balance. And I think that's what's so important, because Aberdeen were a good side, you know, better and all, you know, and Gilhouse, a forward, I remember him, Dutch player, wonderful, gifted player. Hearts had a good team. You know, Hibs had a good team. And you couldn't be complacent with everybody else because they all raised their game. So I really enjoyed the football here, you know, and you know, socially was off the scale.
you talk about being a leader yourself. Who were the other sort of leaders in that dressing room at that particular time?
Yeah, because you know, leaders come in different forms, guises, don't they? The Hat was the best leader. Paul McStay, I call him the Hat. I love him. Just by example. Because I remember when I was a kid watching a programme about him when he was 15. I always remember Inter Milan coming, offered £500,000 when he was a schoolboy. And, you know, Celtic said, and you know when someone's to be a born superstar, but he's so humble. I love him. He's my buddy. He was a top player, you know, and he showed it an example. John Collins was similar. Great left foot, like a one, really talented, technically so proficient, was a really good player. I mean, Jack Anosti was a top player. And I mean, he was desperate to get down to England. Because he would have done well. I think his downfall was, he said to me, he discovered 3 things: women, tenants, prawn cocktail. Because he put on about a stone in weight. But in joking aside, he was super talented. The things he could do with the ball, very, very. I remember going 5-4 Partizan Belgrade in the cup. He got all 5 goals, wonder goals. You had Duras Jobcheck, brilliant. He had a left foot like a wand, ranger passing, diagonal passing, strong, competitive, athletic, could run. You know, we had a really good side. And
how tough then was it to deal with, like you said, Souness going into Rangers and that level of player coming as well, coming against you?
I mean, to be honest with you guys, I thrived on challenge. Because I think about where I started, Charlton, but then going into the first division. So I was already playing against Dalglish, Ian Russ, Mark Hughes, Kerry Dixon, you know, and so on. And then, you know, same at Aston Villa, Luton, Aston Villa, then going to Italy, Van Basten, Maradona. So I'm thinking, okay, you know, again, that's my personality in the game. I bring on the challenge, take it on. And it's no coincidence, you know, a lot of my good games were against Rangers, you know, and I scored. But I didn't have a problem with it. But I can see what I didn't realise was how much it meant to the fans. You don't know that till you're there. You know, talk about Celtic Rangers, but what it means to the fans and the day-to-day intensity of their life. I don't know if it was ever true, but people saying to me that the Celtic, they wouldn't go to work if they got beat. I just thought they were just playing me around. I thought, come on.
They wouldn't go to Victoria's.
Yeah, they wouldn't go. I mean, I went to Victoria's. But
do you not have the conversations then with like a Mark Walters who's been there?
Yeah, Mark stitched me up, because I remember he said to me, Big, when I said to him, because I spoke to I've known Mark since we were 15 when we played for England, youth 21s and such like. And when I said to him, he says, "Big man, get yourself up here. You love it. You love it." And I got here and I rang him. I says, "Wally, what the?" After a couple, I go, "What the?" I says, "You've done me like a kipper," you know. And he said, "Big man, now you settle, you love it," and you know. And he was right. In the end, it was an absolute dream move at a great time, and I. You know, I'm just so lucky to have played in multiple environments in sort of then the second division with Charlton, first division, and, you know, then Italy and then Scotland and come back to the Premier League. So to play in all those environments just taught me so much. And you evolve as a man, as a young man. And so I've forgiven Wally. But he was a super, super, super talented player and a great, great role model.
And just on Mark Walters, I think it was at Rangers where he suffered.
Oh yeah,
racist.
Racist.
abuse.
I mean that's despicable. And the truth is, I and him were kind of the first pioneers. Me for Celtic in the modern times, and Mark at Rangers. And I remember doing I think it was for Sky. It was before one of the Old Firm games, just round about COVID. And I remember they're saying, I'd done a piece to camera, and they're actually saying, Paul, the amount of black players now that's come to Rangers and to Celtic, it would have been unheard of when I and Mark were there. And I says, that's the evolution, isn't it? It's growth, it's diversity, it's giving people opportunities and looking at people and not judging them by their the colour of their skin, their sexual orientation or their characteristics. Are you good enough to be in my team? If you are, you're going to add value to me. I want you. I don't care where you come from, what you look like, how you behave, but you go and perform. And that's great.
Mark Walters arrived in Scottish football before you.
Yeah, it was a year. I think it was a year before him, wasn't he?
Did you have second thoughts because of that?
I say the thought ran through my mind, if I'm being honest with you. But the kind of character I am, what I've done in all my life, on and off the field, break down barriers. Break down barriers, challenge people in administration, which is what I do today, challenge people on the field of play, because, make no mistake, I received a lot of racist abuse, people throwing bananas at me, monkey charting. And so when I'm talking about racism, I'm saying it's not a football problem, it's a societal problem. So whilst you've got racism in society, it's always going to be prevalent in football. But football is getting better.
Where do you see, how far do you think it's come?
I think it's come a long way, because from when I was playing my generation, I'll say it's like the Wild West, particularly down south, because, they would throw bananas at you. They call you a black this, a black that. They insult your mother, your father. They use every range of expletive because there was no legislation in place. And that was not just fans, but also players. And I gave somebody a right hand when I was young, and I paid the price for that. I shouldn't have done that. But, I had to. I was young. I was impetuous.
What do you mean you paid the price for
Well,
that?
because the team lost.
Right, yeah.
And the manager come in, absolutely says, Paul, because of you. But then he understood about the other things that go on. And I says, I was young. I wouldn't do it as a mature player. So I think it has come on. There's a long way. And you've only got to look on the field of play, the diversity on the pitch.
Yeah.
Not just in England, in Scotland, in Europe. So the bigger challenges now, guys, to be honest with you, is getting that same diversity, more black coaches and more people from diverse backgrounds into administration, where I am in the boardrooms. So
how do you do that, though, without people still the old, you're only there because you're black?
Yeah. And
is that the right way to say it? Yeah.
Yeah, you can say that. Yeah. But luckily what I'd done, what I learned, because actually I wanted to become a coach, wanted to become a manager. But my generation weren't getting the opportunities. I wanted to be like Chris Sutton, who's a top guy, very mainstream.
Yeah.
But you've got all the blockages, and football is like a lot of business. They're only comfortable with people like them. They didn't embrace difference.
Yeah.
Diversity, didn't embrace people like me, didn't embrace women, but that was just a narrow-mindedness. But I think it's different now, because what I'd done, the most important thing I'd done, I had a good playing career, but I went back to school, got myself educated, got 2 master's degrees, and the key qualification I got was the UEFA Executive Master. So just like when you're a coach, you need a pro license. If you want to be a league coach pro license, I got the equivalent of that in administration. So I'm thinking, okay, Paul, you've got your plain CV, nobody can argue with that. You get on well with people, but more importantly, you're qualified. Yeah. So then I could go into the room, and what I'd deliberately done in my early years of administration, I'd never talk about football, because they all knew I played the game. But I talked about the business of football, the governance of football. So that's when then people are thinking, he's got more to him than meets the eye. So then you break down those barriers, get the respect, and then what they do then, they're quite comfortable then to give other people chances and opportunities within the decision-making process.
Just getting back to Celtic and your time at Celtic, you won Player of the Year.
Yeah, honoured. It was.
How do you do that? A team that's not won the league, that's
know.
against the stack that you're against.
Yeah, I agree.
It's incredible.
I to be honest with you guys, I say this, I was very proud of myself because it was against the odds. But I think that was just me, my character, my talent, my personality at its peak. and everything that I've done in the game then up until 25, 26 years of age, all of that, I think, gave me the confidence and self-belief to know, I was fearless. I don't care if I played against Mark Haitley, Mo Johnston, Coisty, Mark Walters, any centre forward, compete with anyone. And I think, I'm trying to think where this comes from. It probably comes back to my mum, my grandmother, when, they've had to fight for everything, and coming from our background, from a sort of disadvantaged background, a low socioeconomic background, where I grew up, it made Gorbals look like Mayfair. Just, so
These days it's all been done up
now. I'll change my mind now. Well, I'll say Westminster then. So there's other players, obviously a lot of players, will come from working class and that background. But I think also seeing all the challenges my mum and dad went through with racism, and it was embedded in my DNA. They always said to me, I suppose my grandmother said to me, Paul, to have a chance, you've got to be 2.5 times as good than ever to get an equal chance. So every time you just keep saying you've got to go the extra yard.
Yeah. So even every training session, every time you've done anything, you in the back of your mind, I need to prove a point.
Correct. I never got complacent, never got comfortable. And that's why I played. And I think the professionalism I got came from playing in Italy, because the discipline, the right food, living the right way, even dressing the right way.
As we can see from the day.
Well, I got my Sunday best out. I got my best out to come to Glasgow. But what they do, they make sure you wore the right clothing in the right time of year, because players had problems with their back because they weren't wearing, say, cords that were a lot thicker than, But they were so ahead of the curve. Even when we talk about all the data, analysis, fitness, diet, nutrition, the Italians then were doing that, could see all that on a PC back in 1987. So that level of professionalism, that sharpened my pencil. But I knew, I could socially take a few liberties as well, because I'd go back on a Monday, once I've had a good blow on a Saturday or whatever, me and Jakanowski, Monday, I'm at it. I'm really, and what I'd done, I trained then how I played. So you maintain those standards. It's all about standards.
The Celtic fans clearly didn't want you to go. I think they made their sort of...
Well, it was Packy's testimonial, wasn't it? I think it was Chris,
That must have been nice.
You know what? I love people. First, because you have to, you got to get on with people. I love the race, I fall out with a lot of people as well, especially in my job. No problem. I said, don't take it personally. I'm doing my job, right? So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So I can use the right language with people. But, the Celtic supporters, they were magnificent people. And if I just separate the two, I like their integrity. I love their humour. Humour is unbelievable in Scotland, unbelievable. You have to be quick as well. And I got stitched up a few times, but I got there in the end, right? But it was, to be honest with you, for all the clubs, Chelsea, I felt valued at all the clubs, because I'd like to feel I made an impact at all the clubs, and the legacy's there. But they're bloody special people up here. And I believe it or not, and I'm going to be very honest, I get on with a lot of Rangers people as well, because they're always quick to say whether I'm on a flight, I'm on an underground. They come and say to me, "Oh, I'm a blue nose, but I love you," because he says you're a good lad. He says you're a good. And I'm thinking, I says to them, I'm just a human being. I just happened to play for that club at the time. That's my job. So when you kind of, you just sort of give a rational analysis, and that's why I didn't have a problem with all of that. But I can understand though how it could mentally affect those with the faint-heartedness to handle that pressure, because it's
not much like it.
No. There's nothing. You could even say AC Milan, Inter Milan. You can, but there isn't nothing like the day-to-day intensity of life in Glasgow. I loved it. I loved it because I also loved it on the field, but I loved it socially too.
How does then it feel when you move to Chelsea?
Well, Chelsea were going Chelsea, then I was sort of 27, had aspirations.
Player of the year again?
Yeah, and I'd been on the road literally since I was 18 years of age, which was my first big move.
Was it? You're pretty steadfast, in terms of the way you think. Was it always like part of the journey? Just coming to Celtic, and then you wanted to leave. Why did you want to
Yeah,
do?
I just think I still had more aspiration. I think, and again, centre halves, we don't peak. Modern day centre halves not peak until they're 32. If you keep yourself fit, I was 27, so I'm still thinking I'm approaching my peak, and I just felt, what else could I do more in Celtic?
But what you spoke about your sort of emotional attachment. Did that make it more difficult?
Yeah. It was tough to leave, guys. Honestly, I remember the day. I remember the day when I packed up. I remember staying at the hotel, and I cried. Nothing wrong with a grown man crying, because
Is that because of leaving, you weren't going to be back in Victoria's for a while?
That's right. I didn't get my blue plaque. I'll kill James when I see him. And it was my last night out the night before, so that was it. I was devastated. I needed counselling. I was on the bed, but it was. I think it was tears of appreciation, gratitude, respect, and coming somewhere and leaving a massive impact. I don't know what legacy looks like. I know now since I've come out the game, but during it, you're at Club A, Club B, Club. So you've been to clubs, you just do your best, and you just hope you leave there on good terms, do the right thing. And I'm so grateful that every club I went to, I impacted. But this one was because I was emotionally drawn to Celtic by the love. I really, really.
It's amazing to hear
felt the
that
love.
being from the West Coast and that you can get that.
Yeah, it struck me. And whereas London's big, it's huge. You've got 15 clubs. You don't have the same intensity, the same feeling. It's like there's a feeling, love, kindness. Everything's a feeling. And I didn't have that feeling down south. I had it in Italy. I had it at Luton. I had it at Luton under David Pleat. I had it at Celtic. And it's special. It's special. And I'm living it today. And now I understand why. Didn't know then, but I understand why.
How tough was the injury?
Yeah, it was a bad injury. I mean, I remember, was it 5th of September, 1992, 3:06? Sorry, 3:09. Saunders come in and it was Chelsea against Liverpool, Anfield. Listen, it was a bad injury. And in my life, I've had 3 bad injuries. I had a double fracture of the right tibia when I was a kid at Luton. That kind of injury then could have taken players out. I knew I'd get back because mentally I'm strong, and I worked exceedingly hard. Had my cruciate then in 1987, and a lot of players having cruciates didn't recover because it wasn't mechanically the knees but it's psychologically. And that's when you've got to, when somebody says to me that, and I trust that judgment, that's okay, go out and give 100%, then I do it, no fear. And that's what I'd done. So I was pleased that I went on to bigger things. Yeah. Okay, and that for me, in terms of my professional satisfaction, it was everything me as a young boy coming where I come from, kept going, giving 100%, don't give in, keep focus. You fall down, get back up, you go again. But this one, no, because it was a bad, horrific injury. And I remember the doctor, I had to have emergency surgery about 2 or 3 days after, because once the contact was made on the knee, the swelling was about 12 inches, a 12-inch abrasion. Now, if you can see my knee now, 12 inches.
It's ridiculous.
Because that was the impact of the challenge on the knee. So what that done, so in terms of guys, I mean, I learned to be a bit of a doctor. There's not much I don't know about a bloody knee. So you've got a number of ligaments in the knee. You've got the posterior cruciate, the anterior cruciate, the lateral complex, and the medial complex. And they're all ruptured. Gone. So they were repaired, but we're talking about playing football at elite. And I still, today, the knee's basically okay, but it's the medial ligament there that's in it. It's not good. So I've had to really build up my muscle group. You've got the vastus medialis.
Your career's just going. You've probably got aspirations of playing with England.
Yeah,
probably
Well, I've got Chelsea in the squad.
You're then looking at life comes crashing down.
Exactly.
Done. How do you deal with that mentally?
That's the hardest thing. That if I think about all what I've dealt with in my career, that was the hardest single. So it's about transitioning, and there's a blessing. Every cloud's got a silver lining. And I tell you, my blessing was it never resolved it, but it really helped me to transition because my wife, she was pregnant at the time with my son, Dominic Paul. And that was over 30 years, he's 31. and he was en route, for want of a better word. And she had a really difficult, we almost lost him. You know, she had a difficult birth. And all of a sudden, this young man coming into the world and me being a father, all of a sudden...
Change your mindset.
Correct. That made me emotionally realise, okay, Paul, you've got a bad knee. Look back with pride what you've done. Look back with affection what you've done. Look back with the environments that you've played in. But then all of a sudden, my son on the way Dom and seeing him and welcoming him into this world, that was my blessing, my ultimate blessing. That was the catalyst to help me recover psychologically and mentally. So then I could see purpose thereafter. And now, you know, I look at him now and I've got a daughter as well, and he's a wonderful, wonderful young man. And we do all the things. He loves football. He comes down to Charlton. We go for beers. You know, we do everything. It's a, you know, it really, I didn't realise how happy that would make me becoming a father.
Just going back to the particular challenge from Dean Saunders, and I don't know whether you want to talk about it or not.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it, Chris.
We all know the game, but you felt, you know, you played the game, great career. You felt that challenge was a naughty challenge.
It was dangerous. It was reckless, and there was a reckless disregard for the safety of the player. And ultimately, I would never have consented. I don't think any defender would consent to a challenge like that. And I think that's the facts. And
even in that era where challenges that effectively.
Yeah, because I mean, you know, guys, we all know the game, and we all know what a 2-footed challenge looks like. And the reality was as well, I got the yellow card, and I'm stretchered off. And the referee at the time, John Key, he was suspended. So if that's not a veiled message, I don't know what is. But then, you know what? Again, that's where my other character comes in. I'm pragmatic. I says, well, I'll tell you what, I've had a bloody good run. And then you just have to accept it. And then it's that capacity then, because that's not easy. We made the point. That's not easy. And I've had friends, people in the game that just because they've come out the game and had a very full career has lost their way.
Yeah. That's really tough. I can understand that when you retire and you've not got that routine, structure,
the daily
focus.
thing. That was hard.
That's really tough.
And that's hard for any player. And the transition of that, especially when you are feeling how I felt about the manner in which I had to retire from football. So what I think, you know, what I learned is all that. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. Because what happens, what I learned, and I didn't realise it till, because there's so many people, they carry a lot of that inside of them. Bitterness, anger.
It was just matter of fact.
Yeah, it was. And because what happens is, what I know what would have happened, it would have affected my relationships with people. It would affect how I lived my life, carrying this. Because I've been in people's company that I've tried to counsel, is probably the right word, and enabled them to think beyond that. Because and say, hey, same way I'd say to a player if I'm doing some mentoring at Charlton, we can't sign you for whatever reason, but because we didn't sign you at 18, 19 to be a professional footballer, that doesn't mean you can't go on and be successful. You've got 40 years to be successful in the life. And there's so many opportunities within the game, coach, manager, administration, data analyst, you know, jobs, administration that you can do. So it's bringing that piece into it. But it's easy to say to somebody else, you've got to apply it to yourself and live it and be true to your values.
Yeah, but listening to you, I think you've adapted that.
Correct. Didn't have
like
it then.
Now, you didn't have it then.
Well, you wouldn't. Not at 20.
No, 100%.
Because I'm thinking, I'm at my prime, I'm at my peak. You know, I'm thinking I've got another 5 years, you know, I'm going to go on.
And
then
it's not in your terms.
Correct.
It's taken away
Correct.
from you.
I didn't have ownership of it.
Yeah.
Didn't have ownership. And it's that transition. It's the psychological transition of that. And also I had the physical thing because obviously, you know, the trauma, the discomfort, the operations and everything else. So I think that was the real, everything that I'd been taught by my mother, my grandmother, you know, that really contributed to the person that I am. All those characteristics, I had to dig deep into them to recover Not just physically, but mentally.
There'll be people probably watching this as well, and look, you were injured, you were still getting paid. How did it have a big impact when you then finished, when you had to retire, and all of a sudden what you've had before is no longer there? You're speaking about you've got a wee boy there. You know, it's a horrible tackle. It finishes you.
Yeah, I mean,
as I said, but you've tried to come back.
I couldn't come back. I've done the old slalom test. You know, that's the one when you go in and out the cones, and then I remember my leg just buckled under me.
So then, do you have a realisation? So the tackle happens. Your mindset is, I'm going to come back for this.
Yeah.
Can you remember the moment that changed?
Yeah, it was that slalom when I done it, when I knew, and the pain was excruciating. Excruciating. I have never ever. I remember the pain I felt at Liverpool and as a consequence of the challenge, and that was bad. It's unbelievable painful. But when I'd built up my muscle group and they were really strong, really powerful, if anything, what they call the circumference of my thigh was the right was bigger than the left. That's how hard I worked to really build up, because you've got to build up this group of muscle here and there, because that's what supports the knee, keeps the knee stable. So I just knew in my heart, and it was easier because I gave everything, but mechanically, it wasn't right. And you know what? I remember talking to a real leading physio about 6 months ago, and I said to him, and I spoke to another physio, I spoke to her, if a player had this injury, the complexity and the severity of this injury today, would they get back and play? And they said no. So that's interesting. Yeah. 30 years on.
Does that give you a bit of comfort?
Correct. And I don't mean it in a unkind way towards anyone else, because I know
didn't do it wrong.
I know, because Oxlade-Chamberlain had quite a bad knee, but in a way that just made me feel, you know, when they say in the game, you left everything out there.
Yeah,
I left everything out there. I wasn't in control, but I done everything, and mentally it was not an issue for me. If I knew that knee was right, I would have played, and at the top level.
You had a great career.
Correct.
Paul, I just want to take you back to Pisa, and you talked about Italian football and what it did for your career. There's a lot of young Scottish players who have gone out there,
fantastic
to play now.
I mean McTominay. What a talent! You know, the young boy Billy Gilmore. I mean, I saw him. What outstanding! He was alone at Norwich, wasn't he? I remember seeing him there. Yeah. You know, then you got Che Adams, who's done a great. The boy Henderson at Bologna. You know,
you get left back.
Yeah, I mean,
Indonesia now as well.
Correct. Yeah. So I think, isn't that a real positive measure of the evolution, not just of football, but of Scottish football, that these young talents now, because I always notice, it's kind of funny, because when I was playing in the 80s, I find players, I remember Tom Boyd, come from Motherwell, Chelsea. Yeah. He couldn't really settle in the south. You see what I mean? It's different. It's socially different. It's, you know, it's not as homely, because, you know, London, because you've been there, you know, guys, it's a big city. You know, it can make people, it can break people.
I definitely broke him.
Chris, I didn't say that. I did not imply that, as you well know. Hey, that's a 2-footed stud showing, that one. Hey,
he will that's a
tibia and fibula, that one.
Don't worry,
that's not even a crucial. Keep that in the bank.
He'll be back.
Keep that in the bank. So I really get that, because obviously a lot of players, you know, I can understand why, because I love the comfy, the familiarity, the social familiarity of Glasgow, Scotland. But when you go down south, it's a big place, and you've got to have a big mind, big mentality. And I think that's what pleased me when I was looking at, you know, I was reading up what we're going to talk about, and I was looking at those players, I'm thinking, you know what? They deserve massive respect. Massive respect for going there. And also you think, and Napoli, De Bruyne has gone there now as well. You know, those, you know, McTominay, I mean, they've won the Serie A last season. So for those young kids, and they are young kids.
It's a brave move.
I tell you what, utter 100% unequivocal respect for what they've done. And I think they are great role models. They are great trailblazers for next generations. Because remember, the game's different now, isn't it? Globalisation, it's shrunk, you know. So for those players to go there, I think it's
what was different the culture there? What was different? I mean, I know you've spoken about the Premier League as the leading now, but Serie A back then was the league to be in. The superstars that were there.
the best players in the world all come to Serie A. And also, they could only have, you didn't have then, it wasn't the Bosman ruling then. Yeah. So it was full of homegrown Italian players. So you can only have 2 foreign players. And then a third was introduced. So, when you're
Does that
there,
add a lot of pressure on you?
Massive. My goodness me.
You're the main man.
Yeah. I mean, not for the faint-hearted. But what that done, that made me. The responsibility, the leadership, knowing you've got to perform. And Carlos Dunga was unbelievable because he was. So I felt proud, I felt privileged, but a lot of pressure and responsibility come with that as well.
Pisa?
Yeah.
Good city?
Well, just up the road from Forte dei Marmi, 45 minutes from Florence. And there's a nice little bar next door there. I mean, I discovered Pinot Grigio there.
Was it Tower Street? Was it Tower Street back then? No.
Oh, I'll tell you what.
A few nights when he was walking by.
I'll tell you what, after 2.5 bottles, mate, it was like that. And I could not wonder for the first 18 months how come it was like that the following day. I couldn't work it out. But then it was like that the night after the Rioja. But guys, you know what? And that's what, a lot of it comes back to that, the mindset. I was just so blessed. I was just so lucky. But what I'd done, I made the most of everything. That's why, even notwithstanding this, because I've done so much after this, for the last 30 years, when all the stuff, the anti-discrimination stuff, I co-founded Kick It Out. So trying to do something and give something back and challenge people,
And your old centre-back partner, Steve Clarke, did you ever
love him? Love him.
Did you ever see him becoming a manager, first of all?
100% unequivocally, yes.
Why?
Because he was thoughtful, he was studious, he was strategic, and he could articulate the game at that time in a way when you talk about the third eye, tactically, he was so astute, Steve. I mean, you could see then, and in the sessions, and he was a guy, less is more. Don't like the sound of his own, he gave you a little, I mean, I was going to say I taught him all he knew, but I didn't.
But you can do.
No, not Clarke, he's a top man. And also Steve, look at all the jobs. I mean, he worked under Dalglish at Liverpool, didn't he? Yeah. He worked under Mourinho, Sir Bobby Robson. So in terms of that education as a coach, he worked with arguably the top people and then become a number one.
Yeah, but they took, a lot of them took him as well.
Yes.
It wasn't a case of it. A lot of people are already there.
Yeah, but they took him. Yeah, Clarke, he's been, and I'm a big fan. I love Steve. I'm a huge fan of his and what he has done for Scotland.
Yeah.
For because and I know, guys, you've always got a challenge here with a limited pool, right? And ultimately, you can't deny that. But he has got the best out of. And the truth is, I don't think any other manager could come in and do any better than him. And he picked up the baton at a real challenging time in Scottish football. So he's put Scotland back on the map.
When you said less is more, I think that's, for me, seeing him with the national team,
he's brilliant.
That's his biggest strength now. That's why you've got a squad there who understand everything. Just because it's less is more.
The thing is, you're already
his man management's excellent.
But you're back in. You don't need to. He's still grovelling, still going up with Steve. You're back in.
Yeah.
You can start 4 weeks first camp.
You're back.
Yeah, but he's. I love the guy, and you know what? Steve's as dry as hell, but he's so funny. Once you've been in his companies, I tell you, he's got a great humour.
Top manager.
Honestly, I think. Scotland, you should be grateful to have him. And I'll defend him to the hilt because I know, he knows the job inside out. He knows the ups, he knows the downs, but he's emotionally very, very intelligent and he knows how to manage pressure. He's got a way about him, when the pressure's been on, he's got this dour look about him. You can't read him. I mean, he'd be the best poker player in the world.
But he's the exact same even when he's winning.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So the point is he doesn't get carried away. That's why he's got longevity and sustainability in the game because he doesn't go that way when you get beat, but he doesn't go overawed and lose it. So he's got a nice equilibrium. He's got a nice balance about everything in his personality.
People speak about him as a manager and everything, but you go back, how good a player was he?
Oh, my goodness me. What Steve was, incredibly, who he reminded me of? I'll tell you who he reminds me of. He was our equivalent of Dennis Irwin.
Yeah.
Manchester, and another one was Mal Donaghy when I was a young kid, Mal, you wouldn't know Chris, guys know.
I played against Steve many times.
Yeah. And Steve, he was a 7.5
That's right.
over 40 games of the season. He's consistently unremarkable.
That's right.
He's got a balance about his. Dennis Irwin is exactly the same. So Alex knew he can rely on him.
You can trust him.
That's right.
And you can trust Clarke. That's what all the managers loved him.
But wasn't the biggest?
No.
Wasn't the quickest?
Correct.
I thought he read the game beautifully.
And we use a phrase, Chris, that's a very good point. Positional sense is better than pace.
That's right.
He had great positional sense and he could sense danger.
I think that falls into what you're saying. Like, even back then as a player, you could tell there was a potential to be a top manager as well, because you could see everything.
Yeah. And also I think the position that he played as well, in terms of his, his space, he could see everything in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't, you always think about, he got done there, got done at the far post, somebody out. Doesn't really come to mind somebody that's really taken him on and done him. Mm-hmm. He's my version of Dennis Irwin.
Just Paul, just tell us about Billy McNeill and his influence on you and your career.
I love him. I remember when we had the phone call, he said to me, "Big man." I says, yes, boss. He says, "You're going to come here?" I said, "Of course I'm coming." He says, "That's my boy." And I remember when I got off the flight this morning, I remember it was exactly the same walk. And I remember him and Liz when they come to meet me at the airport. When I come and I've come down, and I said to Big Billy, I says, "Big Billy," I says, "Not much of the brothers up here, is there?" He says, "Don't worry, son." He says, "Yeah, I'll be your big brother for you." That's what he said. I remember this. I got off the flight and he gave me a big hug, and I loved him. I loved him because he was great to me, and where he managed me very well, because he knew, I wanted to get sort of home and he'd let me go home. We'd play on a Saturday. I'd get a flight back, and he said to me, "Big man, take Monday off. Come in Tuesday morning." He said, "Don't be late." I says, "Okay, Gaffer." But what I'd done, I'd do it, but I'd made sure I was in. And he even said to me, sometimes he trained Tuesday. I said, "No." I says, "I'll be in Tuesday morning." And he knew I had the respect from the players, and he knew I would never let him down. And what that done, that created that I went the extra yardage
100%.
for somebody that can manage you like that. Because he knew I was getting agitated because I had some challenges with the board about some things, and he managed me well through that process because he knew I was still going out on the pitch and giving him my all.
How big an impact in terms of you settling into Scotland did he play?
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, and also as well, guys, he was a top-class centre-half, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I think the alignment, we talk about positioning the game, what he wants from it, and, I've got the perfect role model there, to feed off and learn. So I love him, and I'd love to see Liz, because, I always got on so well with her, and she was fantastic. And I miss Big Billy, when he passed was a sad day in my life.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Loved it, enjoyed it.
Brilliant chat.